Good morning. I don't know if I'm sounding any better today, but I'm feeling a little bit better today. Um, but I don't know how long I'm going to be able to chat away with you this morning. Uh, but I'll give it a try. Anyway, uh, last night I I was sort of shopping around. I was scrolling around. I was surfing around for just one little kind of entertaining tidbit for Constance and I to watch before we settled down to sleep. And Constance and I grew up together, okay, in Columbus, Nebraska during the same years. We went to the same junior high and high school, and although we only dated a short while in high school, we nevertheless had the same cultural memories. Okay, we watched the same three television networks. Okay, we went crazy over the Beatles and the British invasion in music all at the same time. We both went to Omaha to see the Rolling Stones together, but we didn't go together. We just ended up sitting right. Sat right behind her and her girlfriends, and so we shared many of the same things. And one of the treasures of those years uh, was a weekly television show on Sunday nights. It was the Ed Sullivan Show, Ed Sullivan Variety Show. And I'm sure you can find plenty of examples. That's where the Beatles were premiered in the United States and everything. But the show was from New York, and Ed Sullivan was a newspaper man from New York, and New York, in a sense, was the center of the cultural universe at the time. And so everybody in town, from the newest rock and roll people to the Broadway show people, to the ballet, to the Moshev dance company. It was a cultural center, okay, and we got sort of a wonderful liberal arts education every Sunday evening for an hour, and we'd see everything from vaudeville type jugglers to great opera singers, to actors doing vignettes from famous plays and everything else. And in a way, it was very culturally enriching to see the Ed Sullivan Show. There's nothing like it today. There is nothing like it today. And because there was only three television networks, or major networks at the time, the viewing audience was enormous. I mean, you could count on 1/3 of the population of the country watching a single show at the same time. And last night I stumbled upon Charles Laughton, the famous British actor. And Ed Sullivan just had him on. There were jugglers and acrobats and everything else. And then Ed Sullivan comes on and says, and now Charles Lawton. And Charles Lawton uh, comes on, and he looks sort of shy and nervous and everything, but he starts to talk about Shakespeare and the fact that even the Globe Theater was the stage was only as big as two tennis courts, and there were no sets. Okay, there were some costumes, but there were no sets. It all depended upon the the imagination of the audience. Now I'm getting into magic here, okay? It all depended upon the imagination of the audience, the magic of the observation, okay? Lee Strasberg once told us that if some kind of truth was going on inside us, that truth beams from every pore of our skin, and the audience observing a truth happening inside you, they interpret the relevance of that truth to the plot of the play or the scene that you're in. They do the magic. Well, anyway, Charles Lawton starts talking about how Shakespeare's audience only had very few bells and whistles to work with, and the responsibility for them projecting meaning to this play was all on them. And it was magnificent. And then he started to do the prologue, the choruses. The chorus is like a narrator, okay? The chorus comes on at the very beginning of Henry V, the story about huge international battles and things like that. And how the chorus says, look, we can't put this on, you're going to have to, and then with the magic of poetic words, he draws you in to the fact that you're going to be eavesdropping on kings and world events and massive battles and horses and armor and all. It's just awesome, okay? And the prologue only lasts about 4 minutes, maybe not even that. And Charles Lawton took the Ed Sullivan audience on a magical, visionary voyage. And look it up. Google Charles Lawton, Henry V, Ed Sullivan, and it'll blow your freaking mind. Okay. Now, many years ago, our friend, Kenneth Anger, cursed another one of our friends, David Wilson, and it was all over a misunderstanding, okay? And it was very comical. We talk about the whole thing here in Low Magic. And we, because it was such a big misunderstanding, we thought we would try to do something kind of magical to neutralize it, or to make things right again. And what was funny about it is Kenneth wrote out in beautiful script and everything else, wrote out the curse on his own stationery, which was filled with like drawings and cartoons of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream with Puck and Oberon and things. So it was on stationary, Midsummer Night's Dream stationary. And so, which is kind of funny because the theme of Midsummer Night's Dream is a misunderstanding. And there are two herbal drugs, I guess, if you will. One that caused the misunderstanding and one that took away the misunderstanding, or one that made you see distortedly to misunderstand something, and one that would lift that curse of that distortion of and there are two flowers. Okay. And now I'm not a big herbalist or anything else, and I certainly admire people who are into the mystical properties of herbs and things, and I fully realize that there's pharmaceutical, real live chemical pharmaceutical properties to these things, but they're used magically. And so there's a story behind the magic of them that makes them magic. Just like there's a story behind Charles Laughton's wonderful weaving of that introduction. There's magic in the words, and no one did it better than Shakespeare. Crowley was a poet, okay, and part of why he was also a great magician was that that he had a piece of that. Now, Shakespeare was well aware of the mythological and magical properties of plants and herbs. He mentions by name at least 80 varieties in his plays and poems. 26, he mentions 26 in A Midsummer Night's Dream alone. I first wanted to confirm what flower was used by Oberon to bewitch the eyes of Titania and the others, and then what other flower was used to lift the curse and allow everyone to see things clearly. Now, the Huntington Library and Gardens in San Marino has a complete, I mean a complete, Shakespeare garden with every plant and herb that's mentioned in Shakespeare's plays. We went there and found these herbs and stole little pieces of them too, but that's not what this talk is about. Okay. In Act 2, Scene 1, Oberon himself tells us about the first flower when he informs his servant Puck precisely what it is, why it is magical, and where he can find it. Now, if you could get behind the magic of his description, of his poem, if you could get behind the magic of it, he could be talking about cardboard and it would contain that properties. Okay. Now, the story he's about to tell is all sort of wrapped up with the politics of the day and Queen Elizabeth. Okay. Now, Queen Elizabeth, she was called a virgin queen, okay, because in a sense, part of her public persona was that she was a virgin and she was married only to, she's renounced love and is married only to England, okay. So there's a bit of that in here too, because she's a big patron of the Globe Theater, okay. Now this is Oberon, the king of the fairies, and his uh, uh, servant, Fairy Puck, who was perfectly played by Mickey Rooney. Okay, but anyway. Oberon wants to bewitch somebody with this flower. Okay. Oberon says, "My gentle Puck, come hither. Thou rememberest since once I sat upon a promontory and heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song. And certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea maid's music." Puck says, "I remember." Oberon says, "That very time I saw, but thou couldst not, flying between the cold moon and the earth, Cupid, all armed. A certain aim he took at a fair vestal throned by the west, and loosed his love shaft smartly from his bow, as it should pierce 100,000 hearts. But I might see young Cupid's fiery shaft quenched in the chaste beams of the watery moon, and the imperial votress passed on." Okay, the moonlight spoiled his aim, and the arrow missed her. Okay. Passed on, in maiden meditation fancy free, yet marked I where the bolt of Cupid fell. It fell upon a little western flower, before milk white, now purple with love's wound, and maidens call it love in idleness. Fetch me that flower, the herb I shewed thee once. The juice of it on sleeping eyelids laid will make a man or woman madly dote upon the next live creature that it sees. Fetch me this herb, and be thou here again ere Leviathan can swim a league." Can't you see the power of words investing in that story, in that story that transcends a normal description of something? Okay, it's a hymn. Okay. In Shakespeare's day, love and idleness was the name of a violet and white European wildflower, also called heart's ease, Viola tricolor, which was the ancient ancestor of the pansy. His description of the mythical genesis of the flower, that being created when Cupid's arrow missed the heart of a fair vestal thrown by the west, is a not so subtle reference to Queen Elizabeth I, whose virgin heart was officially never pierced by Cupid's arrow. The purple of love's wound, okay, remember, it was white, but then it turned purple. Love's wound of a once pure white flower was a poignant reference to the fact that Elizabeth had shunned the personal pleasures of marriage, and the garment that would have been her white bridal dress was transformed by a greater duty to the royal purple of the monarchy. She quite literally became the bride of England. When you think about it, there was big magic in that flower. The sexual power of Cupid's arrow, shot, quote, as it should pierce 100,000 hearts. instead of casting a powerful spell of passion on the great queen, injected all its magic into that tiny quivering flower. I love this stuff. The identity of the other flower, the one Oberon used to free Titania and the others from the spell of misunderstanding, can be found in Act 4, Scene 1. Oberon says, "But first I will release the fairy queen. Be as thou wast wont to be." And he touches her eyes with this herb. "See as thou wast once to see. Dian's bud, or Cupid's flower, hath such force and blessed power. Now, my Titania, wake you, my sweet queen." Do you see the method to our madness in trying to lift that curse with these herbs? Dian's bud, Artemisia absinthium, the name for the chaste goddess of the hunt, another virgin. It is the archaic name for absinthe or wormwood. Associated with sorcery from prehistoric times, its feathery greenish-gray leaves are poisonous in concentrated doses that produce narcotic effects in smaller doses. It was starting to sound like serious pharmacology. Okay. Anyway, that's what I wanted to discuss today. It seemed like the curse lifting worked okay. I give more details here, and it's an interesting story because we love both Kenneth and we love David too, and we were sort of saddened by the misunderstanding and tried to do what we could to set things right. Anyway, that's it for today. I made it through, and I'm still alive. But we're getting better. Okay, we are getting better. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, be good to each other, but be good to yourself. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.